All right. Good afternoon or good morning to those on the West Coast. My name is Toni Neary. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Workforce Innovation here at SME. And I'm thrilled to be here today moderating a discussion about an organization that is very near and dear to my heart as well. And when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're not just talking about gender, race, and religion. We're also talking about neurodiversity and individuals with developmental disabilities. I'm so happy to be here today talking about a program that I first heard about at an NCATC conference many summers ago. And when I first became aware of the program, Mike Bastine was talking about College of the Canyons, and I was moved to tears. The story highlighting the talents of individuals with an autism diagnosis and providing training for fulfilling careers blew my mind. But to hear employers talk about their perceptions of neurodiversity changed, I knew that I would promote this program everywhere I went. I'm so pleased to introduce our two guests today, Ivan Rosenberg and Peter Rathmann. Peter is the president, CEO, and owner of Allis Manufacturing Corp., and he graduated from Carroll University in 1992 and later earned his MBA from Keller Graduate School of Management in 2004. He purchased part of Allis Manufacturing Corp. Back in 2017 after winding down his sales management consulting practice and retired from teaching business ethics and business-to-business marketing at Carroll University and Waukesha County Technical College. He's now made it his mission to help other manufacturing companies integrate neurodiverse individuals and employees after his experience and success of his own neurodiverse employees and oldest daughter in the manufacturing industry. Peter actively supports the Uniquely Abled Academy at Milwaukee Area Technical College, and he and his daughter are active speakers for Think Ability Wisconsin and Disability in Wisconsin on the topic of neurodiversity in manufacturing. And Ivan Rosenberg is the founder and president of the Uniquely Abled Project, inspired by the unique abilities of his two children, both with an autism diagnosis. Ivan determined the world could look different while serving as a board member for Exceptional Minds Studio and combining his work as a consultant focusing on the aerospace and defense industry. Ivan was inspired to create the UAP, Uniquely Abled Project. What began as a bold or maybe unconventional idea has evolved into a program that spans 12 states, 23 academies with more on the horizon, and over 235 graduates as of this month. However, its influence extends far beyond reaching the businesses, families, and communities where these individuals are recognized for their unique abilities rather than limitations. Ivan, welcome, and tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to form the UAP.
Thanks, Toni. It's just great being here. Well, I think what's unusual is I was a person that had a combination of backgrounds. I founded a software company. I was an electrical engineer. I was a professor. I was a consultant to, as you say, to aerospace and defense companies, primarily manufacturers. And then, as you said, I'm the parent of two kids on the autism spectrum. And that's an unusual combination to deal with a social problem. When my kids were teenagers, they're now in their mid-20s, what we obviously started worrying about is how they're going to support themselves when they're older. And the stats were really bleak. I mean, 40 to 60 million people diagnosed as disabled, 60 to 90% unemployment, and 90% among those with autism. It looked really, really terrible. And at the same time, my clients, as I said, mainly in the aerospace and defense industry, manufacturing, are complaining that they can't get the people they need to workers. And I said, wait a minute. I mean, these look like solutions, two problems that look like solutions to each other. And so that's why I founded the Uniquely Able Project to deal with that. And the first question we had is, well, what's in the way? Because these two problems have been around for quite a while. And the first thing that was in the way was the word disabled. As I say, Coca-Cola doesn't sell Diet Coke by telling you bad chemicals. It tells you how good it tastes. And yet when we try to hire somebody that's disabled, that's what we start off with, saying, here's what they don't have, which causes all kinds of worries in an employer. And so I realized that everybody that has an employment challenge, whether it be mental, physical, or experiential, has a compensating unique ability. I mean, people, for example, that have a vision challenge have heightened sense of hearing and touch. And, what job could be good, would that be good for? Well, being a masseuse, where vision gets in your way. Now, I'm not saying everybody that gets a vision challenge ought to be a masseuse, but it's an advantage. So that's where I coined the term uniquely abled. And then the next question is, well, what programs can we create? And what I realized was that there were a lot of jobs that required prior training, but there were very, very few successful training programs for the uniquely able. And you said I was on the board of the Exceptional Minds. And it was not a high job placement rate, in my view. It did great work, but I would have liked to see a higher job placement. And I wondered why. And that's when we discovered there were 10 elements that are required if you're going to have a successful vocational education program. And we couldn't find any organization that had all 10, or very few. So that's why I created the Uniquely Abled Academy, which is simply a structure where multiple organizations could partner to seamlessly deliver all 10 elements in a single program.
Perfect. And we'll dive into that in just a little bit, because I want to take a minute and I want to meet Peter as well. So Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about your background in working with neurodiverse individuals. Oh, and Peter, I think you might be muted.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Perfect.
So thank you, Toni. Thank you, Ivan. Kind of an honor. So I'm just one employer out here. I'm a dad of a 24-year-old daughter, right? So our story is not unique, but yet it is. The post K-12 system, seeing how sink or swim that is, and as a family having to navigate the tentacles of the octopus of all the services out there that don't talk to each other, and went the DVR route and tried all these things. And anybody can put inclusivity on a mission statement, but hey, action, not words. And when I had found this opportunity through my consulting business, I inherited two guys on the spectrum. And it was kind of funny, because it was, hey, what are you going to do about Dan and Tim? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Met them, understood, the way they thought, and how they were, wired to think about this space. And when you think about the high functioning autistic space, these kids are very rule-based, very logical, very order of operations, which is perfect for manufacturing. And, Emma would come with me to work and showed some interest in, running the laser engraver, helping guys set up stuff. And I'm like, well, okay, well, at that same time, MATC, Milwaukee Area Technical College, was, I think, the second to adopt the program out of California, and found it on LinkedIn. Said, listen, I got 3 kids working on the spectrum for me already. This is possible. And when I found the program, I reached out and said, hey, this is, I can help other employers figure this out. And so that's really become my mission. So, the success of these kids and seeing what they're doing, and my employees, and then we're on our 3rd cohort here. I have a 3rd employee now full-time that is out of the 2nd cohort, and we're paying for his education. It's been several media pieces produced on us. It's been really cool. And where my mission came in was really post-COVID, where you have a certain part of society that doesn't think they have to work, and yet they should be rewarded for that. And you have a group of individuals that absolutely are capable, want to be a part of a team, and want to be doing some of these cool things, but have been told they really don't belong. So where do you think I'm going to spend my time, right? And so we've kind of made it our mission here now to work with other employers in the Milwaukee area. And I've offered help to the Massachusetts program starting up. And now I believe Gateway Tech to the south of us is going to be pulling on a program too. So it's very exciting to see, and was more than willing to give whatever advice and playbook that we've found out there.
Absolutely. And Ivan, I think it's really important when we look at the program that this is not a charity case, right? This is a win-win-win. And can you share just a couple of success stories for us where you've seen the impact in the community, the college with helping with enrollment, as well as the employers with hiring the individuals that are graduates of the program?
Yeah, that's really an important point, that it's not charity. Charity is pretty short term and not sustainable. We're looking for career jobs for people. And so this whole program, comes from a business perspective. I'm a business person, and that's the way I talk. So, as you said, it's a win for the employers who get great employees. They often turn to be their best employee, which is pretty amazing when you think about, disabled being my best employee. Well, a uniquely able can be. Clearly, the individuals, it's a win. You can't get what a terrible future these people have, and that they've, nobody's going to hire them. They're going to be homeless. That's what they're basically told. So all of a sudden, they've got a well-paying job, full benefits, with a great career, and they're doing something useful. I can't tell you the relief to the parents. I'm one. And, you care about what happens to your kid, and the future looks bleak for the parents. All of a sudden, it looks great. The schools hosting the UAA, now many of the higher education institutions have had a drop in applications. All of a sudden, they got a whole new population at full tuition. And the vocational rehab and so on that are paying the bill do so with a smile, because we're solving a major problem they have, which is getting people jobs. And then the community wins. You've got a bunch of people that are tax-paying, that are happy, that are productive, et cetera. And of course, they're not drawing from the welfare rolls. So you asked for some success stories, and I've got two. One of them is from, and I don't know his name, but an individual in Ohio. He was so scared of social interaction because of the experience he had in the public schools of being jeered and bullied and so on, that if you just said something to him like, "Hi, Joe," he would go like that, like you were physically threatening him. And by the end of the 16 weeks, his parents said you couldn't shut him up. And they wondered what miracle we had produced. And all we had done was put him in a safe, inclusive environment with people, and this is what they all the students say, for the first time in their life, everywhere they looked, they saw themselves. And that was real unusual. The other story, I got to read it a little bit because it comes from an article. Teased in middle school for her name, shunned in high school for her autism, Siri Richet never felt supported, never felt accepted, never felt at home anywhere. Most people didn't care if I succeeded or not. No one really believed in me, she remembered. Then she found out about Milwaukee Area Technical College, UAA. Like they said, the roller coaster is only going up right now, she said. Everyone in the program has been so supportive. I'm getting into it and finding out that I'm pretty darn good at it. This is the big deal. The very best thing is that I finally feel like I belong somewhere. Her voice cracking with emotion. Being in a place where I'm truly accepted for who I am is a miracle. And that's what the 235 kids sound like.
Absolutely amazing. And I think, Peter, what are some of the misnomers that employers might have about hiring neurodiverse individuals?
Sure. So there's the business case of, hey, we're going to increase our indirect hours and our training dollars being spent, right? And the lack of productivity because they don't have the skills that a 10-year tool and die apprentice may have. In the productivity, or they're going to blow up our benefit costs, right? Because they are using services, and it's ridiculous because there is no. We measure productivity hours in the building versus machine hours on stuff, and multitasking while your machine's working. And listen, all three of my individuals are over 160% efficient, and there's no drama on the floor. They do their work to a T. And, Siri was a graduate here of MATC, and we helped her get into the next level of additive manufacturing because she is so wired for the big picture and designing stuff, and had a crochet pattern that she did when she was 14 and downloaded 5,000 times, right? So interesting that, yeah, I know her dad and have helped them connect with the next level of things. Just that they're going to take up more of our time. And I'm like, I would take more individuals on the spectrum than I would the neuromajority or neurotypical, just because they want to do the right thing. They know what to do. They love the work they do and the results that they do. Paycheck, listen, we pay in the same competitive wage. They're coming out with the same school education as the regular state apprentice. This isn't charity, like we said. This isn't a watered down class like your IEPs and your K-12 just to get you out on a checkbox of the school's graduate numbers. This is the standard program that all tool and die individuals are going through. So the qualifications are all already there. Eric, who we have now in house, my team was more worried about how they were to interact with them than anything else. And when he came in and interpolated a print, set up a part, and was cutting chips within an hour, he had the respect of 18 guys instantly, right? So now he's one of the guys, he's come out of his shell, actually dishing some sarcasm back to us, which is kind of fun to see. But, the depending on who you're talking to, if the me's will see the value in this, the human resource aspect is a little risk averse. The financial individual want to know the efficiency rating, right? And the people just want to work. And if you can find somebody that wants to be on time, can be on time, goes up and beyond, and is capable of doing the work, you will create a role for that individual given some of the values out there in the society today. So regardless of how they're wired, you find those three characteristics, you can teach them anything.
And that's a perfect segue into my next question for you, which is how much training do you need to provide when hiring a graduate of the UAA programs?
So, good question. Just as unique individuals to the companies they're going to land in. So listen, we're very heavy job shop. My guy's 20 years experience, Swiss Army knives when it comes to style of machining, tools being used. We can work on parts from a toothpick to a telephone pole and a deck of playing cards up to the size of a Yukon, right? So depending on what aspect of the machining they like to get into, again, because the classes are aligned in the apprentice program of what the tool and die would take, we have the equipment that they were already using in those labs. So I have just the same style of machinery and tooling, and do the same style of machining that they're already learning. So it was an instant seamlessness, into our space. Now, some individuals like the high productivity repetitive side, some like Swiss machining, some just like lathes. So the opportunity really has to match the interest level and kind of what part of the Swiss Army knife that these kids are on.
Perfect. And then Ivan, what accommodations do schools and employers need to make for mutual success of this program?
They're pretty similar and remarkably few. For schools, I think, again, you've got to open your mind that all students don't have to conform to a certain normality, if you want to use that term. So the school really has to be open to accepting neurodiverse individuals. And another accommodation is that we have found that it's best to have what we call an inclusive cohort rather than a mixed cohort. That is, everybody in the cohort has the same kind of diagnosis and the same kind of need for same kind of support needs. And the comment that I made earlier, for the first time in my life, everywhere I looked, I saw me. It's really important. You and I can't imagine that because we've always had people around us that were like us. And it's really important if these people are going to go into an inclusive setting, they got to learn in sort of an exclusive setting. Like you can't teach people English that only understand Spanish in a English only room. You got to have at least a little bit of Spanish in there. So that's one of the accommodations. You got to have teachers that are willing to learn how to talk to that particular population. For example, people with autism are often very literal. And if you say something like, boy, really, something bad happened the other day, Joe kicked the bucket. They want to know, why is Joe kicking a bucket around?
Right.
Very literal. So you got to watch your language, and you can't make them wrong. And there's a whole thing you got to learn how to put a correction in. And you have to be very objective and very visual. So those are the kind of things that instructors have to learn. And in general, in addition to the technical training, there's a job readiness training that is needed. These kids don't know how to interview. They don't know how to have chit chat around the water cooler. They don't know what to do if they're busy on a job and a coworker comes up and wants to chit chat without, really offending that coworker. So they got to be trained in how to do some of those things. And those are the primary things for the school. But other than that, it's really quite simple. Same training program, same material, nothing's different. The content's the same. For employers, it's, I'd say the biggest accommodation is in the selection process, because often the selection process has nothing to do with the quality of these people as CNC operators. And if you don't understand autism and you ask somebody, well, what's the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to you? They're going to tell you, and they probably won't tell you with much, I don't know, making it sound socially acceptable. So you got to learn how to talk to people, and you really want to talk to them and select them in terms of the job. So that's one thing, and we help them with all this stuff. There's a little bit of onboarding, not much. And then managers need to get trained in how to manage, just like the teacher needs to get trained in how to speak to them, how to correct them, how to support them. And and we have a video on that and help them, but here's one of the interesting things that we've gotten back from managers after they get trained. They say, this is really good stuff. I should use this with all my employees.
Right.
And we say, yeah. So that's the accommodations.
And I think one of the amazing things is looking at, if you do become a uniquely abled academy, and this will actually feed into our next question and one of the questions from the audience, you'll receive that support in providing ways to help communicate with companies in your area. You'll get a consultant to work with you on working with different agencies to ensure that you have all of the tools for success of your program, the individuals, as well as the employers. Ivan, how can other regions build a talent pipeline through the Uniquely Abled Project?
Good question. And it's been very interesting. I've done a lot of talks over the last month, and I've gotten a lot of phone calls from areas that have exactly that question, and some of which are not interested in CNC, but are interested in something else. We even got a contact from shipbuilders in Hampton Roads who need people to work building ships. So I would say summary, first of all, get in contact with us. Let us help you, walk you through that process. You don't have to do it by yourself. But what that process looks like is, first thing to do is identify, well, what's the jobs that are in demand in your area? And then identify the abilities associated with that job. Now, this is a major deal. We distinguish between skills and ability. A skill is something I can teach you, like typing. An ability is something that's innate, like the ability to tolerate high repetition and yet maintain detail focus. Nobody can teach you that. I don't have that, by the way. In a job that needs that, I would fail. And what's interesting is it's the abilities that spell the difference in whether a person's going to make it in a particular job or not. But most people don't realize that, and they list skills. So what you want to do is, for the jobs that are in demand, identify, well, what are those abilities? Like being able to tolerate high repetition, follow directions, work alone, etc. And then look and see what are the communities who have likely to have those abilities that I need for those jobs. That's what we did. And you can start with either the abilities, or you can start with the jobs. We started with sort of the CNC because that's what my clients had. And I said, here are the abilities. What diagnosis match those in? I knew a lot about autism. And so I saw that the abilities typically of somebody with autism match those with CNC almost perfectly. Now, that matching often turns out to be highly subjective. We're looking for tools. What you can do is you can also start with the uniquely able population that you have in your area. And I recommend going to a site called the DeBruce, DEBRUCE Foundation, which has something they call agilities, which is very much close to what I call abilities. And there's a free test online that you can take and come back and tell you what your top 3 agilities are. And then another tool will help you take those 3 agilities and find out what vocations match those agilities. And certainly when you get to the point where, okay, we got this population, we got this job, what do we do now? Definitely call us at that point, and we walk you through the rest of the process, and we support you through the whole thing. We got tons of documentation, videotapes, and as you said, a UAA consultant that walks you through it.
Perfect. And we'll dive into next steps if somebody's interested in just a minute. But Peter, I want to go from the aspect of not just being an employer, but also being a parent. How can outside service providers and families support individuals that want to explore or attend one of these UAA programs?
Sure. So I think the word of mouth, I, like many other parents, very frustrated and almost gave up on the whole system of services and employability that's out there through the state and some of the nonprofits. And what we did here locally was really, my daughter and I spent a lot of time navigating, looking for other dads and daughters out there. And we were in a unique space. And through that, found several nonprofits and services out there that were aligned already and had reached to some of these families and individuals. And so basically built kind of a networking referral community for the local program through Best Buddies, through Disability In, through even Down Syndrome Association and Thinkability, that has the reach to say, hey, and when you talk about some of the adaptations employers have to make, my first thing is like, listen, take your traditional hiring process and your 5-page job description and burn it. And we have 3 basically interview questions that were like, okay, what did you do with your Lego kit after you first built it? And did you repurpose it? Have you ever built models or do anything mechanically? Because then you go back to the things that are innate in ability, and they already have that, right? So many of these kids have that mindset of building and gaming. And so when the reach to other families, and one of the slides we'll talk about when Emma and I realized these parts that other families and their kids have in place to be successful in the world, you'll start to see that takes a village mentality. Hey, everybody knows somebody that has a child that's disabled or on the spectrum. And so that's where we've tried to really reach through either social media, success stories, and making physical introductions and bringing people to lunch together to say, you need to know this program. And Milwaukee's going to be on their 4th cohort now, and I believe they have more applicants than ever before, because this does make sense. I toured an individual just before this program that the mom reached out to me frustrated and introduced her to she's going to the open house on Thursday with her son. So, the very top level qualification, if they are mechanically inclined, and like the idea of building something or can put models together and have that ability already, listen, they're perfect.
Well, and I always talk about Minecraft, right? Because I remember when I had my son, he was 7 years old, standing in front of a CNC machine for the first time. He looks up and he sees, the G code running by and goes, XYZ, that's coordinates like Minecraft. These kids are playing Minecraft. They can do this, right? They're already living in a world of coordinates. It's such a smooth transition, and it's logic. It just makes sense.
Correct. But you cannot use idioms or sarcasm because you have to explain. It takes a lot more to explain it after.
No nuance. And I was going to say, if you want to find flaws in your standard operating procedures, have one of these individuals run through it, because they will undoubtedly find that for you. Ivan, can you talk a little bit about the process? Because we have a lot of people, questions. Do you have a UAA in Michigan? Do you have one in Maryland? What does the process look like? So I know, I'm on the end of this here in Ohio, where we've been plugging away for 2 years, and it's not the program, it's where we're trying to implement that we're challenged. But I know it's normally about 6 months. Can you talk about what happens from, yes, we're interested, we have, maybe a CNC boot camp style program that's already up and running. How do we get a UAA?
Sure. And just to answer the question of where are they, if you go on the uniquelyabledproject.org website, and there's a page there that lists all the operating UAAs and the contact name and all that stuff. So that's where people can find out if there's an existing UAA next to them. And if there's not, and you want one, contact me. And I don't care whether we've had an instructor, we've had a head of a school, we've had 2 mothers contact us, both of which ended up, one in Massachusetts, and MATC was actually started by a mother calling me and saying, I heard about your program. We live in Milwaukee. We're not moving to California. What do I do? And so we walked her through it. So the first thing is to make sure, that you have, as I said, the demand for the job, and you have the sufficient supply. And most of the time it's been autism and CNC. The next thing is to make sure there's an existing training program in your area. We build the Uniquely Abled Academies around existing training programs, usually at a community college. And as I say, we use all the same instructors, machines, contact, etc. And then the next step is you say, okay, we're committed to this. You become a licensed UAA. There's a $10,000 licensing fee, and you get a UAA consultant that works with you every step of the way and on. Milwaukee, still, their UAA consultant still works with them. And that's somebody that's set up a UAA before, knows what they're doing. And the next step is what's called a formation team meeting of a few people that are interested to decide what are the organizations we're going to invite to play to provide these 10 elements. And that includes job placement and post-hire support, which so many programs don't think about until graduation. We start thinking about it at the very beginning. All 10 elements are covered. So they figure out which 10 elements which 10 organizations or more are we going to invite. Then you hold a UAA project team meeting where you explain to these organizations what this is all about and invite them to play. And in that, you send, okay, who wants to be on team 1, team 2, et cetera, et cetera. And then that project team meets probably 2 hours a month for the succeeding months. And as you said, it takes about 6 months. It takes about 3 months just to get everything together, organized, all that stuff. And then about 2 to 3 months of marketing and onboarding. And by the way, the funding authorities, which are often the state vocational rehab, are in that meeting from day one. Because don't forget, we're solving a problem for them with, our job placement rate, which is unheard of, is 95%. Or another way of saying it is every kid that graduated that wanted a job got one. And for that, to tell a vocational rehab, to fund that kind of program is they love it. So that's basically how the thing gets put together.
Perfect.
From the private side, real quick, when they're building the advisory council around them, it's going to be much more effective if they find employers that already have individuals on the spectrum or are parents that are of it, because they get it. I've seen so many companies brought to the table that don't have experience in this sector, and it's very much like having a conversation in a French cafe if you don't know French. And so to find the community that's already doing it and working with these individuals is going to be a lot more effective for the guidance and kind of the private sector partnership and for the employment pipeline afterwards.
I love that advice, Peter, because having the allies and the advocates that actually understand that this is a talent pipeline you want in your organization is a huge obstacle if you're starting from scratch.
Yeah,
correct. And you go back to that misnomer. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, good point, Peter. And what we found is that how many heads of organizations have somebody with autism, either in their direct family or in a close relative. It's really quite amazing. I mean, 1 out of 41 born today has autism.
Yeah, the numbers are staggering. And if you go back to the misnomer conversation about, it's like, well, we've got all these recruiters and retirement, headhunters calling us all the time with people. And I'm like, well, how's that working? Because you still have job openings out there, and this isn't something that you can fail at in my brain. And maybe that's just the way I'm wired, but no matter how you get involved or how you are into this program, listen, it is more than these kids had last week or had in their future before. And just talking about it is the right amount of energy to get started with a program in your area.
And Peter, I think this is a great time. We talked a little bit about training, but I also want to talk about accommodations and retention of employees that are graduates of UAA or that have an autism diagnosis. So this is a great time to go into, like, what are some of the accommodations and what does your retention look like with these employees?
Sure. So when my daughter and I first started presenting and were asked to do through disability in Wisconsin a year ago, it was based on case studies of the 12 families we know that have special needs children. And all these kids are out there in the workforce living independently, right? Emma's going to be 24, working for a partner organization, and she's moving out in a month with some other friends. And a year ago, we never as parents would have thought that was possible, right? But here, gainful employment, some of the kids will still qualify for SSI. So there is that. So there's a certain limited. Some of these kids have core morbid diagnoses. Like Emma is also epileptic, so that's under control. But as far as when we realized what all these companies had, it was exactly this: the flexible scheduling. If they only want to work 15 hours a week, or 3 days a week, or afternoons because they like to take a walk with their dog, fine. But it's predictable, and you can build a calendar and a schedule around it. The horizontal structure, what's funny is that the custodian will be on the same level as the CEO to all these individuals, right? They don't see hierarchy or differences, and it really gives you faith as a human to see that they just see you as individuals. So you're gonna have to expect that, yeah, they may come ask you a question and not understand why your door's closed. Favorite attire, if they want to wear a hoodie, you might have to explain that, hey, with the lathe open door, you don't want those cords hanging in, and you have to understand that you're going to have to give up that hoodie or the hat or something. But why not? I have a kid, one of my individuals wants to wear shorts, even though we have 25 below wind chills, for 2 months of the year, the kid's wearing shorts. Okay. Stack training as well. You're not going to be a pilot on day one. Right? You're going to want to learn all the mechanics, the parts, how they work together, who's next to them. And my philosophy is that you're doing this for the guy next to you, not for me. So that's who you're doing this with. And then the clear direction, absolutely. You can't leave anything for translation, because they will come up with a pathway that you didn't even think was possible in your own brain as potential solutions for things. But they are never wrong. And you just need to have them understand. The other slide, we kind of call our four-legged stool, is that, listen, it does start with the individual. You're not going to force somebody to do this that doesn't want to. So the individual has to have that want to be there. They have to be and have those abilities that are innate. And they have to be able to kind of advocate for themselves. We did really try to hire an individual that was very struggled with communication. We just didn't have the support to make that right. The career then has to be aligned on that individual capabilities, right? Has to be supported. Again, anybody can put inclusivity on a mission statement, but have you surrounded the middle management with the tools and the frontline employees that also help? Siri's dad physically asked me in a presentation to their class, what do you do when somebody calls your kid a blank?
Yeah.
And, it took me 2 days to really kind of think about that. And my answer as a parent is what I would do is against the Geneva Accords. But as a professional and as a business owner, listen, if somebody asked your child that in my company, I have not done my job to build a culture that can support these individuals. So we do have a no a-hole rule here. And again, that whole mentality, the bottom up, that we're focused on the mission, which is quality and on time. Doesn't matter who you are, race, religion, gender, age, creed, whatever, it's all focused on that. And so therefore you create a role based on that. Family absolutely has to be involved. Post-gaming the day, pre-gaming the day, providing some translation for some of the idioms and sarcasm they've heard, right? And then the fourth party resources, which are already out there. Not everybody drives, so transportation, some of the state coaching services that are out there, but yet to work with the coaches that are part of the UAA and the school too. The staffing model is very much a way for a company to get rid of some of their financial concerns. If you don't want to bring on an individual as a direct W-2 hire full time, there's agencies out there that can help bring them in for 20 hours a week. And thus you're just paying an hourly wage as you get to know each other. We hired Eric full time. He's a W-2 employee, even though he's part-time because of going to school. But my daughter, her two opportunities were through a staffing agency because it kind of removed that risk of full-time hiring somebody you know. But then one of my misnomers is, listen, who have you hired in the last 6 months that you don't have a concern about, right? So when you think about all these concessions, you would do this for any employee, even the flexible part-time with today's life balance. Get rid of the traditional mindset on shifts, right? We work 4 10s, but if they want to work 5 6s, fine. I can build a plan around that. So, and then the next slide was really just about if you're going to look at that, what I call the ecosystem, is that within that hierarchy of the organization, listen, there has to be that opportunity for growth. Emma was in 2 positions where once they realized she needed extra help because of some fine motor skills and some having to explain things 2 or 3 times, these kids tend to get relegated to repetitive off-shift type things that are just a body, not a career. So I'm going to challenge companies to say, listen, there has to be a growth path. If you need somebody just to sort parts, this isn't it. But there has to be that vision from the top, and then there has to be the coaching in the middle and the bottom to help support these individuals. And that's what, when we looked at these 12 kids that we knew, all of these had this. And so I wish this was a money back guarantee playbook that here you go free on TV. But it is really kind of our we'll use the pancake analogy. I'm going to order pancakes from 12 different restaurants. They might have some of the similar ingredients, and I'm going to get a pancake into the day, but each one of those processes is a little unique to get that to you. So what makes sense for these 12 and for me here may not make a complete replicable model for other companies, but this is where we saw the ingredients that'll get you to 95% of it.
I think it's absolutely amazing. And, looking at the opportunities for individuals to find a career, not a job, but finding a career and opportunity and a pathway. Before we jump into the questions, this is one that's exciting for me. I probably should have mentioned in the beginning, I also sit on the board for UAP, which is a huge honor. Ivan, what is next? What's in the horizon right now for Uniquely Able Project?
Yeah, and I did take a look at some of the questions, and I really would like to get to them.
Mhm.
So what's next is a couple of things. One, we are looking at additional vocations. We're looking at additional employment obstacles. So we're looking at particular at doing a mini workshops, because if you're untrained and you're disabled, it's real hard to get a job, and therefore it's hard to get an apprenticeship as well. So what we're trying to do is lower the risk a little bit of hiring them by having a 2 to 3 week workshop on what's the culture of manufacturing, what's the terminology, and so on. So we're supporting apprenticeships. We're supporting other vocations beyond CNC. And we're, as I say, expanding to other employment challenges.
And I think we're also looking at other areas, which this answers one of the questions. Is it just for CNC? No, we are looking at basic manufacturing skills with the CMFGA program, which would be more of an entry-level position. We're looking at robotics integration, but we're looking at what those opportunities may look like to really provide more opportunities for uniquely abled individuals as well.
Yeah, I would say
I think
anybody,
you should look at industry specific too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If there's anybody that says, hey, I want a UAA in this vocation, contact us. We're very open to that conversation.
Absolutely. And then we had Rebecca Walker, who is actually with the UAA in Pennsylvania, said they partnered with their local autism society to actually deliver and host a special session for employers, which was totally free for them, called Autism 101, Neurodiversity in the Workplace. And this was structured to help them see the benefits and how to support uniquely abled individuals in all areas of their employee groups, which I think is absolutely amazing. And one of the things is with the Uniquely Abled Project, when you're buying into this network of programs that are already there, right? They're already running these programs. They've been through some of the obstacles. They've overcome some of them as well. Yes, the webinar is being recorded and will be available later. That was one of the other questions. Vicki wanted to know, is Uniquely Abled in the state of Maryland yet? Their program is growing. I don't believe we are yet, right, Ivan?
No, and if you're interested in helping us bring one to us, just give me a call or contact me. By the way, that Rebecca, if that material is available, I'll be glad to get it posted on our website. Just again, let me know.
Absolutely. Emily wants to know, as a vocational training program, we do have some standardized testing required by funders before being enrolled. How have you overcome that challenge?
We haven't really had that challenge. There is some standard testing that UAAs do to make sure that the kids have adequate math, generally first year algebra, high school algebra, and that they have English comprehension, and that they have basic physical movement, because you got to pick up metal and dog them down and use a machine. Other than that, and at least a GED or a high school graduation, we've had no requirements from anybody.
And I think we could probably talk with other programs. I know we're looking at setting one up here in Ohio at Lakeland Community College, and Auburn Career Center is running adult education programs for individuals with developmental disabilities. And I believe they're doing the work keys assessment at the beginning of that, because it's a required part of the funding. So that could also be another option.
That's what a lot of UAAs use for what I just said, is they use the ACT work keys.
Perfect. And then David wants to know, is there a UAA in Michigan?
Not yet, and we have some people interested in getting one. And if you'd like to be part of that group, contact me and I'll put you in touch with them.
Perfect. Vicki wanted to know if you could give the name of the websites again. I believe that was for the agility test that you mentioned, Ivan.
Oh, well, there's three websites. The Uniquely Abled Project website is uniquelyabledproject.org. The other one is the Beer Foundation. I don't know their website, but if you look on DEBRUCE, I think, is the foundation. And then their thing is the Agilities, AGILITIES. And if you look for an Agilities template, you'll find that. And if you still can't do it, contact me and I'll give that information to you.
Perfect. Emily wanted to know if we've looked at jobs other than CNC, if we've looked at welding and assembly, and those have all been things that have been on the radar. If you're a partner that's interested in that, we'd be happy to work with you.
Absolutely. And they turned out that they are actually a good fit for autism, and assembly is actually a good fit for other diagnoses as well.
Absolutely.
And when we first started out, we did have kids that were doing that.
Evelyn wants to know, she said, some sites are marked as paused or in transition. What does that mean?
Good question. If it means that they're actually paused or in transition, likely means they're just getting ready for another cohort, and they may not have specified the date for that. Hiatus means they're actually probably not going to do another cohort. They've got two that were open and are not doing it anymore. But paused or in transition means that they're likely going to have another cohort, and they're just trying to figure out the date.
Perfect. And we probably just need to clarify on this one. The question is, what are the costs of having a consultant work on a program? And that is included with your one-time UAA $10,000 fee. That would include your consulting, your branding, and all of the work to help establish your program. So that's an easy one. I can actually answer that one, Ivan.
Yep. Okay, good. Yeah, that is, and especially, and by the way, we don't expect a school to pay for that. There's plenty of organizations out there, including the Voc Rehab, banks, and so on, Goodwill, that are interested in, that would pay that $10K.
Absolutely. Terry said, I represent a nonprofit that operates an urban farm, a workforce training program, and food distribution center. Would this program support something like that?
Yeah, we'd be interested. If you're have a vocational training program or want one for uniquely abled, we're interested in talking with you, period.
Absolutely.
So the answer is yes.
Perfect. And lots of questions of where the locations are. And I see Stephanie in the chat. So I'm actually going to call Stephanie out and ask if she can drop the UAA website so people can go and see where the locations are, because that would probably be the easiest thing to do.
Yes, Stephanie, thank you. Stephanie is our outreach and communications coordinator and makes everything work. So I didn't know she was on. And so she does have she has websites.
She is wonderful. So she can drop that in here for us. And the question just came on. Yes, this will be a recorded webinar that you'll have a link to after the fact as well. I think we got through all the questions.
A link on our website as well when it's released.
Yes, absolutely. And then I would like to, in closing, ask both of you, we'll start, Peter, with you first. In what ways do you believe the manufacturing industry as a whole can better support individuals embracing more diversity?
Oh, that's a big tent.
Great.
You know, I think it's just open-mindedness, right? So much of us get myopic in doing the same thing the same way for so long. I took over a shop that couldn't get out of its own way when it came to thinking outside of the box. And sometimes that includes looking inside the box and if you're using everything properly, right? So I think the best thing in business is when we see success. I mean, I read 200 books a year, and they're all based on success, whether it comes out of business or, military endeavors, adventures. And the best thing to see is to look at success and replicate it, right? There's not a lot of net new left to do in the world. There's a lot of successful things already working that people don't look up from their shoes to integrate into their own space. So, I without answering directly, but think I'm answering, I just think it's looking at non-traditional. If you always use one recruiter, or if you've always used one skill sets that you're looking for. Listen, so much of manufacturing in Wisconsin still, I believe, does 1/12 of the nation's manufacturing is done here. Depending on the regions you're in, you would align with those skill sets, right? Milwaukee's very good at machinists and engineers for things based in Wisconsin. Purdue is going to produce NASA engineers, right? The East Coast and aerospace is going to come out of California. So to align these schools with the tech system that should already be aligned with the private sector in their regions, right? I think it's just looking at this as again, another channel, and it's completely unexplored in my mind, to see how other companies are doing this and actually how easy it is compared to things you're already doing.
And I mean, it's an untapped talent pipeline. So if you are an employer and you're saying, where are all the good, reliable people? Because I think we hear so often, I just need somebody that can show up every day. I can teach them all the technical skills. Okay, let's put your money where your mouth is and find your local UAA and start making that happen. Ivan, same question to you. In what ways do you believe the manufacturing industry can better support individuals embracing more diversity?
Well, I just ditto what Peter just said. And I'd add to it, stop having your advertisements be for people with 2 or 3 years experience. They're not out there. It's a waste of time. Be open to hiring entry-level people, particularly if they're from a uniquely abled academy. Because as Peter indicated, these people, rather than being productive in a year, they're productive immediately. It's really quite amazing. So stop with the focus. It's nice. If you can get 2 to 3 year experience, great, but it's very low probability. And I think the other thing is, and Peter referred to it also, change your your selection process. 90% of the interviews that autism folks have with HR, they fail because of HR doesn't understand in autism. They don't even maybe understand what CNC is, and they ask questions and they get responses. I'll give you a simple example. Many people with autism have a hard time looking you at the eye. The data exchange is too intense for them. So they'll be looking like that. And so HR will interpret them as lying and won't pass them just because of that. So change your hiring process, your selection process. And then, as Peter said, be open to having great employees. I did a survey last summer of CEOs that had hired graduates, and they almost all interviewed their supervisors to say, what should we do? And one of them came back and said, the answer was simple. All my supervisors said one thing: hire more. Need I say more?
No, I think that's a pretty good summary. And we had one more question that skated in right after. Lori wants to know, have you approached high schools to incorporate career exploration and provide information, possibly even tours, to see the successes in areas that you have programs? High school students, parents, and others get limited exploration. I found so often students graduate high school and have very limited opportunities. This would be interesting to do in areas that you have programs. So I know I can speak for Ohio and Lakeland Community College. We are specifically looking at working with a local high school with their individuals that are in the 18 to 22 audience to help fill the program there. But I love this idea, and Ivan, this is probably something that you, Stephanie, and I could get out to share information.
Yeah, and we have looked at that. Again, we're sort of limited on staff, so that's the issue. But one of the things you might look at is nuts, bolts, and thingamajigs. Mm-hmm. And they run 2-week summer workshops on manufacturing. I think they have like 200 of them. But if you just look up nuts, bolts, and thingamajigs, you'll find out about their workshops. So it's great for UAAs as well. And we're looking at their work being precursors to ours.
Fantastic. Well, Peter and Ivan, I can't thank you enough, not just for today, but for the work that you're doing, because it's pretty amazing. And I'm excited to be a tiny little cog in the wheel of everything happening with Uniquely Abled Project. If you'd like more information, you can send us a message at request@toolingu.com, and a recorded version of this webinar will be available for download. Ivan and Peter, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Tooling U, for putting this together. Greatly appreciated.
Likewise, I'm available from an employer side. Anybody has any questions about what we're doing or others, please feel free to reach out.
And same for me, I Rosenberg at uniquelyabledproject.org.